Okay. Okay, so I'm bracing myself here. At number 21 in my NFL power rankings, I present the love child of the 2017 offseason, the Tennessee Titans. A lot of people will fight me on this, and hell, both ESPN and NFL.com has the Titans at 12. And before you all start going off on me, let me get a few things clear. First things first, I need to do my best to try and slow down the hype on this team because it's gone too far. As well, I want to clarify that I am in no way saying this team won't have a very nice season and maybe even make the playoffs. Like I've been saying, this is the deepest NFL season I can remember. There's a lot of good teams this year. So first things first, even if it's somewhat close, the Titans are still the third best team in their own division, and Vegas agrees, as you see here. I will admit they stack up pretty similar to the Colts, but despite the hype around the Titans, this offense is still not as explosive as the Colts, and comparing these defenses is pretty marginal as they're both pretty bad. And at least the Colts were able to add a ton of pieces to their defense, and their offense is still better simply thanks to Andrew Luck and T.Y. Hilton. And oh yeah, the Titans haven't beaten the Colts since 2011. And then you look at the Texans, who, without spoiling too much for their own deep dive, are the class of this division. They have the best unit in the division with their absolutely dominant defense, who just happens to be adding back the best player in football, not playing quarterback, and an offense that will be much improved under Deshaun Watson. The Titans couldn't beat these guys last season either, going 1-3 or 0-3 in games with Marcus Mariota against these division opponents. And that's not even mentioning injuries. Where the Texans and Colts both faced significant injury problems, the Titans were the second healthiest team in the league last season. Just look at this chart, which clearly shows the correlation between injuries to wins in the 2016 season. It's a almost exact downward trajectory with few outliers. But over everything I just said here, honestly, my biggest concern for the Titans and why I'm lower on this team is the coaching staff. Play calling is an absurdly underrated aspect of football. Watch any Cowboys or Falcons game from last season and then try and argue the other way with me. The Titans offense is incredibly straightforward, pretty predictable, which to me limits this team's explosive upside that so many people are projecting. And worst of all, I think this staff has done a terrible job developing Marcus Mariota, who after 27 starts, the quarterback I see on film still looks timid and uncomfortable inside the pocket as he did coming out of Oregon. He has all the tools to develop as a tremendous quarterback, but he has not taken that step in terms of pocket awareness, and I will dissect that take in a minute as we get into the depth chart. But needless to say, I don't see this team winning the division. Vegas has their over-under at 8.5, and I'm staying away because I think they win between 7 and 9, but not the 11-win prediction that I keep seeing from people all over. All I say to those people is this team is just 1 year removed from finishing with a measly 3 wins. And newsflash, the Titans aren't the only team that got better this offseason. In fact, if you want to consider that chart I just brought up and take the approach that returning healthy players is the biggest improvement that any team can make in the offseason, which is something I support as well, not just that chart, then they are actually one of the least improved teams in 2017. The schedule also really doesn't help this Titans team. This right here, this is about what they would have to do just to go 8-8. And that included me giving them wins that I wasn't comfortable handing to them in the Bengals and the Ravens and at Jacksonville. Those games will all be toss-ups. And at 40-1, this team isn't winning the Super Bowl. They just aren't ready for that. So let's dive into this depth chart now and talk a little more specifically about where I fall on this team in terms of the players. Starting with Mariota, I mentioned that I have been disappointed in his development. And by the way, guys, believe me, I want him to be good. I'm cheering for him. I've been a huge fan of Mariota throughout his career going back to Oregon. I have a number 8 Titans jersey hanging in my closet. But when I go back and watch more film, as I've done for all of these deep dive videos, I constantly come away feeling disappointed by Mariota. Given all of his quickness and athleticism and ability to throw on the run, he hardly uses that ability. I think this is why people are so high on the Titans. Everyone loves the excitement of Mariota, but what difference does it make if he lacks the confidence to use those tools? Now, I can't show the tape in this video for copyright reasons, but I did tweet out several plays that sum up my concerns with Mariota. 3rd down and 7 on potential game-winning drive. He makes his first read over the middle, not there, instantly takes the check down to the running back, which creates a 4th and short, which they ultimately don't convert against the Colts. He had a completely clean pocket on this play, and in my opinion, completely settled for the check down, when there could have been a 1st down conversion somewhere in the play had he actually extended it like he's totally capable of doing. Meanwhile, after the turnover on downs, Andrew Luck has a beautiful 3rd down conversion, taking the game into his own hands, stepping up in the pocket, rolling right, and completing a nice pass to Hilton to get a game-winning 1st down. It's just a total show of the difference between the caliber of those two players right now. And this isn't just a one-time thing. I watched all 16 Titan games from last season, and this lack of awareness and ability to manipulate the pocket is a major concern. Lack of ability to do that, rather. And on tape, it seems a combination of problems, including poor recognition of the status of the pocket, not having the confidence to step up in the pocket and trust his offensive line, or simply just doing a poor job avoiding the rush that you would think his athleticism, he would be able to do that. And a lot of that comes back to this coaching staff, which I criticized earlier. And we've seen less athletic quarterbacks develop the comfort to do those things I was just talking about over time. Andy Dalton and Matthew Stafford come to mind there. But to assume that Mariota will take those steps this year just because they signed Eric Decker and drafted Corey Davis, that's a pretty big stretch for me. Right now, Mariota is a fine game manager, a better version of Alex Smith, if you will. He is a point-and-throw quarterback who can execute the play call and make the first read or two. Unfortunately, the first read can't always be there, especially when Terry Robiskie is your play caller. Ultimately, this is what limits the Titans for me and why I'm not buying them to explode offensively in 2017, which is what they're going to need to do to meet these expectations that people are putting on them because their defense is not that good. I think they will finish about the same, a little bit better offensively, which is in the top 12, thanks mostly to the rushing game. So let's talk about the rest of this offense. In terms of the running backs, it's a pretty straightforward group that we don't need to talk much about. It is a great group, however. Murray was awesome last year and really established himself as a top 5 talent at the position. This is still his backfield for at least one more season, I think. As Henry continues to be the backup, I think Murray has at least one more season in him, but he does have a lot of tread on his tires, as they like to say. He just turned 29. Everyone seems to really like Derrick Henry, myself included. I think he can be a top 10 running back in this league, but not much more than that, as his massive frame kind of pigeonholes his skill set a little bit as a big bruiser, but he's really good at that. He's sort of the modern-day Jerome Bettis. Really nothing behind those two running backs, however, in terms of depth. David Andrews is gone, by the way, if anyone was wondering. David Fluellen, and an intriguing guy to keep an eye on here, Khalfani Muhammad, kind of a shifty 3rd down back. If and when Murray isn't the guy on 3rd down, I think we would start to see some of Muhammad on 3rd down, because I don't think that's really Henry's skill set out of the backfield. Now onto the receivers. This has been the center point for all the optimism surrounding the Titans. Personally, I really was not a fan at all of the Decker signing. Decker is on the downswing of his career, and although this contract is minimal risk in terms of cap space, I see it as a marginal upgrade to this offense. But it's going to hinder the development of Corey Davis and Tywan Taylor and any of the other young receivers here. With Rashard Matthews, a veteran already there, I hate the move of bringing in another veteran to take the reps and targets away from the other receivers that need to develop and develop confidence. It's not like signing 30-year-old Eric Decker, who was cut by the freaking Jets, is that last piece the Titans need to compete for a Super Bowl. No matter what you think of this team, this is still a team building for the future, and signing Decker for a year simply counteracts that. I also can't emphasize enough how disappointed I would be as a Titans fan in the draft of taking Taywan Taylor, who is at best an average slot receiver, and watch, he's going to be the steal of the draft now and be the next Antonio Brown now that I said that. But I would have much rather had our Darius Stewart, Chris Godwin, Kenny Golladay, all these high upside potential number one receivers were all there. Hell, if you want a player in the slot who offers more upside than Tajay Sharp, why not take a shot on a D.D. Westbrook, who was still there as well, a Heisman finalist? I just don't understand the Taywan Taylor pick. So while everyone is freaking out about how much better Tennessee has gotten, I'm sitting back kind of disagreeing, as I frankly didn't like these moves at all. I do love Corey Davis, though, who does offer the offense that true number one. But again, with Decker in here now, how is Corey Davis going to emerge as that true number one in the way I originally expected, simply due to limited targets now in a run-first scheme? It's just not going to be there for Corey Davis this year. The rest of this depth chart doesn't offer a ton. Trey McBride has been disappointing. Not sure he even makes the team. And then Harry Douglas is still there for now, but he wasn't terrible last year, a solid veteran to have in your depth as a fourth or fifth receiver, though with Decker here now, he might be on his way out. Moving on to tight end, Delanie Walker, still playing at a high level, though he isn't getting any younger. When does his athleticism start to dip? He's a little shorter for a tight end, so he can't really rely on that size like Antonio Gates has later in his career. Jace Amaro and Jonnu Smith, the third-round tight end, will be the developmental receiving threats at tight end, here looking to replace Delanie Walker long-term. Philip Supernaw, a good backup that will probably be the extent of this tight end group. This offensive line is this team's best position outside of maybe running back. The tackles are just awesome. Each are top 10 guys at their position, and reasons to be optimistic about this team and Mariota for sure, with Conklin and Lewan. Each are top 10 guys at their position, and then on the interior are each top 16 or so guys, aka they are all quality starters. Pretty decent depth too, as you see me scrolling through here. If I were ranking this line, I would say this group is between the 5th and 7th group in football, which might be a touch lower than some people have them, but you know, you're splitting hairs. It's a great group. Moving on to this defense, which is by far my largest concern for this team, by the way. I know I've spent a lot of time talking about the offense, but I think it's generally accepted that this defense is going to struggle. They are by no means terrible, but nobody, and I mean nobody, is actually afraid of facing this defense, as they are average to below average at all three levels of the defense. Up front, the D-line is okay. Jarrell Casey is the best player on this whole team. I think the departure of Al Woods in this group is a slightly underrated departure. I thought he was the second best run defender here. Headed to the Colts, by the way, Al Woods. They do, however, replace him with Sylvester Williams from Denver, so we will see how he pans out at nose tackle. And Daquan Jones, a starting caliber 3 to 5 tech who has been developing at an okay rate, more than a lot of NFL players can say, I suppose. Carl Klug still there to rotate in and out. Austin Johnson, second-round pick from last year, hasn't played well thus far. Angelo Blackson and a group behind him that will struggle to make this team. As far as linebackers go, Brian Orakpo really impressed last year. They certainly aren't nearly as good without him out there last season. Derek Morgan has been a completely average edge defender and projects to be about the same next season. So the edge is, I suppose, top 20 in the league, with Kevin Dodd rotating in and out as well. Wouldn't be shocked if he ended up beating out Derek Morgan, actually. Aaron Wallace and basically nobody else here in terms of depth. Inside is pretty solid with Wesley Woodyard and Avery Williamson back. Neither dominant, but both very solid inside backers. Would prefer to see a true number one here, however. They do take Jayon Brown in the 5th round. Might he develop into that number one I just mentioned? Certainly has the physical upside to do so. Darren Bates, Nate Palmer round out some pretty poor depth at the position. So linebacker probably the quote-unquote strength of this defense if you had to pick something. At corner, McCourty leaves, bringing in Logan Ryan as the number one corner here. He's a good corner, really good in run defense, but is going to struggle having to cover the other team's number one receiver. And we don't even have a clear picture of who the 2 and 3 guys are here. It will probably be LaShawn Sims as the 2 and Adoree Jackson as the nickel. I liked Jackson for his athleticism, but he does have a lot to learn and could be in for a rough rookie season as he adjusts to the NFL. Reminds me quite a bit of Demarius Randall in Green Bay, actually. Bryce McCain, Jordan Smith, and Kalon Reed making up the rest of the corners here, unless an undrafted guy wins out one of those jobs, which frankly wouldn't be asking too much for an undrafted guy to make this roster. The 2 safeties here make up a serviceably average group. Serviceably average, sort of the theme here with this defense. Jonathan Cyprien had a very nice year in Jacksonville, gets a good free agent contract to come into Tennessee. Should be an okay plug-in free safety, but he is by no means a difference maker at the position. The same can pretty much be said for Denoris Searcy. He's got some pop in the run game, but certainly not a dynamic player. Kevin Byard, decent third guy to have here, should get some reps in certain packages and really nothing behind him. So I think after rounding out this defensive depth chart, you can really see why I'm worried here about a team that was very lucky in terms of health last season. You go one deep at pretty much any position and you are already getting into below replacement level talent. And even if they do stay healthy, where are the playmakers? The potential for this defense is basically capped out around a top 20 defense, which is about as low as any team in the NFL in terms of potential and upside. So I hope I opened up some of your opinions on this team. Titans fans, let me hear it. I'm looking forward to it. If I happen to change your opinion on this team that everyone is freaking out about, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. So that's all I have. We will see you all for the reveal of number 20, and peace out.